Hello, Abnormal Investigations. Good to see y'all or talk to y'all, however we do it. I feel like I spend most of the time with you when I'm on here. Oh, we got a little bit of a different one today. It's kind of goes with what's kind of going on in the world right now. The things flying around that nobody seems to know what they are. And I've got another lady that sent me in some stuff. I haven't quite got to break it all down, but she sent me some photographs, actual photographs, and a story she wrote on a notebook that I do want to get out to you guys. I will probably drop it on Patreon because she gave me like some really personal photos, and I don't know if she would want them out or not. So it'll probably go on Patreon. I was very blessed that she shared them with me, and with today's topic and the topic that these are about, I probably would get in trouble if I released it because she's also talking about the things flying around. We don't know what they are, and she has some pretty wild encounters. So I'll be working on that to get it out in Patreon. Plus, the other Patreon video we got coming out where we're really going to break a lot of that down. So it's going to be very, very interesting. Alright, guys, let's jump into it. This is one of the many scary encounters I've had in my life. Sometimes I feel like I'm a magnet. Was I chosen? You be the judge and let me know after you hear my encounter. It was a chilly December night, and I was outside scraping the ice off my windshield and cursing under my breath. It was very dark out, and the parking lot of the job I worked at was pretty empty. I worked that night, and I worked late, and most of the coworkers had already gone home. I had agreed to stay a little later to help clean up before getting in my car for the 30-minute ride home. As I reached for my seatbelt, I felt this sudden rush of adrenaline. I felt as if I was being somehow watched. I ignored this feeling, tossing it up to the fact that I was just tired and probably my mind was playing tricks on me. And I was a little anxious to be home, to tell you the truth. As I got myself buckled in, I turned on my car radio. I was flipping through the channels trying to find something good to listen to for my ride home when I reached a channel that was playing classic rock. But the reception was pretty bad and it was kind of hard to hear, but it was one of those where it just kind of stuck to you and you didn't want to pass it by, so I left it there. After a while, I started to turn the dial slowly when I heard it. A cracking and humming hiss that sounded unnatural. I listened a little longer and heard the faint sound of what sounded like two people having a conversation, but I couldn't make it out. As I was trying to listen in, I noticed all around my car was a pale green light. I stopped what I was doing immediately and started looking around. That humming sound was louder now, but it sounded like it was all around me. I turned off the radio, realized the sound was coming from outside. Curious and still feeling that rush of adrenaline, I decided to open the door and have a look outside. At first, I didn't see anything unusual besides the green light until I looked up. As my eyes adjusted to what I was looking at, I could hardly believe it. It was a UFO, and not one of those cliche kinds you see in the old movies. No, this was a real UFO, and it was big. It had green and yellow lights around its base and was circular in shape. I felt this ominous feeling deep in my stomach. As I slowly snapped out of my daze, I ran for my car as quickly as possible. I grabbed the door handle, only to my horror to realize it was locked. I tried frantically to unlock it with my key, but no luck. It stared back at me, and I stared at the UFO, and it started to hum louder. Then it shot off into the sky, and it disappeared. I stood there for a while in shock, trying to figure out what had just happened. After a while, I slowly made my way to the car door. Hands shaking, I grabbed my key and tried once again to unlock the door. To my relief, the door unlocked this time, so I climbed inside, started my journey back home. I drove back home in silence, gripping the steering wheel. I was about 15 minutes away from my house when I started getting the feeling again. That feeling of being watched. I started noticing once again the pale green light, and I realized I was back again. And it was right over me, and this time it was following me. I sped up, trying to make it home as quickly as possible. The UFO followed me all the way to the street where I lived. To my horror, once I started pulling into my driveway, I realized I had led it straight to my house. What was I thinking? I sat in my car for a while, wondering if I should drive somewhere else and lead it away, when suddenly the UFO flew off in a flash and disappeared once again. I didn't waste any time. I got out of the car and I booked it to my house. Once inside, I started hyperventilating. I felt this rush of panic and I was still somewhat in shock. Did that really just happen to me? I wondered. I was tired. It was a long night. Maybe it was an airplane. Maybe I was just losing it. But no, I couldn't have been hallucinating. There was just too many things that couldn't be explained that had just happened. I stood there for a little longer and then slowly made my way to the bedroom. I couldn't make myself fall asleep. I laid in my bed awake for a long time, contemplating if I should call someone and tell them what had just happened. I decided against it, though, as no one would probably believe me. I started to attempt to close my eyes when I heard the faint sound of scratching coming from outside. It sounded like it was by my window. I jolted up, and I stared wide-eyed toward the direction of my window, and noticed something quickly scurrying away. Not again, I said in frustration. I threw my covers off and I jumped out of bed, wondering what freaky stuff was happening to me this time. I made my way to the window and I looked around outside. At first I didn't see anything. My eyes started adjusting to the darkness outside when I saw it. A gray-skinned creature darting behind the tree outside. I was beyond spooked. What the hell was that? I said it out loud. I watched a little longer and saw it once again peeking at me from behind the tree. The creature was pale gray with bulbous head, sunken black eyes, and it had long fingers that were gripping the bark of the tree that it was peeking out from. I was staring at the creature, and it noticed me. And then when it noticed me, it ran off. I felt sick. A wave of fear and nausea rushed over me. That thing, it looked unnatural. Was it an alien? I don't know. Did the UFO come back? Were they coming to get me? All these thoughts started racing through my head when I suddenly heard the loud crash and my car alarm went off. I ran to the front door and looked out the window near it. My car was fine, but the trash can had fallen over upside down. I grabbed my key and mustered the courage to open the front door and shut off the alarm. Just then, I was startled by the familiar sound of my next-door neighbor, Adam's voice. "Hello there, Nick," he shouted. "I was out walking the dog and noticed someone was lurking around your property. My dog started growling and barking. I think it scared them off. The intruder knocked over your trash can and ran off that way," he said, pointing toward the woods that bordered both our properties. "Thank you, Adam," I said to him. Did you notice anything unusual about the intruder?" I asked him. "No, not really," Adam replied. "It's so dark out, all I could tell was they seemed kind of short, and maybe it was a kid messing around or something. Seemed to be a small child." "Maybe," I said, knowing very well that was no kid. I thanked Adam again and returned back inside my home. I sat on the floor near the door for a while, still pretty shaken up. After some time passed, I saw blue lights outside and saw the police were in my yard. One of the officers came to my door and opened it. He told me about the neighbor's report and asked me if there was any other details of the prowler. We talked about what had happened a little bit, and I got the courage to tell him about the thing I saw, worrying he would think I was crazy or on something. But to my surprise, he seemed unfazed. He said, "I wasn't the first person around here to report something strange going on tonight. After they were done looking around the property, they told me whoever was lurking around was gone, but to call them if the intruder returned or if I noticed anything out of the ordinary. I never did see the UFO or that creature again. All I know is something very weird happened to me that night, and I never want to experience anything like that ever again. That thing, it looked so empty inside in its eyes, almost like it was hollow, like it had no feelings. It's hard to explain, but you could tell it was evil. Yeah, that's a really interesting story. I've had a lot of people telling me here lately that they are experiencing these little creatures, and they're seeing these little guys, and they're seeing them in their houses and at their doors and in their barns and on their houses and in their trees. So, guys, there's something going on. I'm not sure what it is, but we're going to talk about a lot of this in the Patreon, because there is some stuff going around us right now that is it's not normal, and we're going to talk about it. It's scary, and there's some things going on, and people are having some tests done, and they're getting results back, and it's not what you think. Thanks for listening, guys. Until next time, keep your head on a swivel. Don't be something's dinner. I appreciate each and every one of you. If you don't mind, share this video out on your Facebook, any of your social media platforms. It helps a lot. And smash that like button on your way out. Thank you very much.